4 different shapes. He was given a chance to design a whole city, Chandigarh, the capital of, I think, the Punjab in India. And this is just one of his famous buildings there. Much of this is, I'm not sure whether it's even occupied. A lot of the furnishings are for sale. And we see this very organic shape. In Notre Dame, the chapel of Longchamp, the south of France, he is supposedly inspired by a seashell to get this shape, and he explored the different trajectories of light by punctuating the wall with different shapes of windows. They're very beautiful, very aesthetic, perhaps an appropriate for a church interior, using sculptured light. And this, the most famous building in our area, this in the Guggenheim. This was at the time, it was Idlewild Airport, TWA terminal. TWA was the world's most important airline, I'm not sure about the largest. Eero Saarinen did it. Remember, the man educated at Cranbrook. This was simulating the wings. This was talking about aircraft, like a bird taking off. The interior, now I was never in the interior. I guess I never flew TWA. I knew, I saw the outside of the building. This, I don't remember when it closed. I mean, let's say it closed certainly by the turn of the century, but I think before that. TWA folded, I don't remember at what point. I remember when TWA folded because I knew somebody working for them. The interior, you have to be properly impressed with it, whether you like it or not. This was done before computers were designing the interior. So this was sculptured and engineered. JetBlue owns it now. When I flew JetBlue about a month ago, they didn't have it open. They said sometimes they allow tours in there. They're talking about having it hold concessions or food halls or shops. The gates are not large enough to accommodate jets, which is why they can't use it as their main hall, plus all the security stuff. But it's an extraordinary building. The interior is landmarked, as well as the building itself. That's one of the reasons it wasn't taken down. There's a big challenge with historic preservation with buildings like this. I told you about, I think I've referred to industrial objects that become obsolete, like the pencil sharpener. Eventually, nobody's going to need a pencil sharpener because you don't use pencils. You're not going to need the Selectric typewriter. Did I mention the Selectric typewriter? Okay. Again, you're not going to need that. You don't need a building like this where you can't use a building like this where you have computerized shipping. But you don't want to destroy it because it's a landmark. But there is the argument of the fact that you are taking up valuable space. It costs money to maintain it. We could have a more efficient building. So you will encounter this kind of argument. So as designers, you need to be aware of it. You're even going to encounter it with, somebody will buy a house in a landmark district and be restricted as what they can do. Buckminster Fuller was an engineer and an inventor more than a designer. He did many things, but his concept was the geodesic dome, which is you put together with kind of stick-like forms. You assemble them into hexagons, and you have a sphere made out of hexagonal forms, which is infinitely expandable, very easy to build and very easy to take it down. So it would be for Quonset huts, for army military housing, and several of them were built by the army. The most famous one built for Montreal Fair. He didn't make a success of having regular, normal housing. He had plans for building geodesic dome housing on an island off the coast of Canada. Things like this never came through. He was a great visionary. One of the things I put in, it's not exactly organic design, but you should want to know, the first hotel atrium, not all hotels had atriums. 1967, a man named John Portman, who also designed the very ugly Marriott in Times Square with an atrium, but he designed as well the Marriott, the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta, not Atlanta, the Hyatt Regency in San Francisco, which is a beautiful one, very often used in films, with elevators like this. So the glass elevators that go up, you look at the atrium, and all of the rooms are sort of look out on balconies. Instead of a hallway, narrow hallway, you have a hallway that's open to the atrium on one side. This was a revolutionary idea at that time. Two of the most famous organic buildings, I've showed you several that are famous, two outside of America. Oscar Niemeyer, a genius in Brazilian architect, did an entire city in Brazil, Brasilia, the capital city. So it was a new capital for Brazil, and this is the most famous building, which is site of a cluster, the cathedral, a cluster of curving, like almost boomerang kind of forms, although he didn't intend the boomerang, coming together, getting light in from the overhead, from the skylight overhead. And Jorn Utsen's Sydney Opera House, Utsen is a Danish architect, he may have just died. Last time I read about him, I think he was 101, I'm not sure if he's still alive. This is on the, sort of like the prow of a ship facing the water, and he meant it to suggest the sails of a ship. And this was enormously famous, but it's also apparently a very good working opera house. But this called a great deal of attention to Sydney. Mid-century modernism is the style of interior decoration that this is what people put into international style houses. But what happened that led to all of this, what happened first was World War II.